us. And even the latest Creator Insider, I don't know if you watch that channel, Creator Insider.
I normally do, but I haven't seen it.
Yeah, the latest one, I thought, oh, they'll mention this, but they haven't mentioned it still. Even though there are a number of people have noticed this and done videos about it, they are still, oh, what's that, Gary? What's there?
He's got a red point on his finger.
Don't
I just so we don't. No. I just went off because John was waiting there for us to start, and he's had to do his. He's having started sorting his socks and wash it yet because he's waiting for us to start. So I thought we'd start early. We're talking about some news from the world of YouTube where people can rip off your content. That's
legitimately rip off. Yeah, legitimately. Now, here's an intro. Should we explain this then? Do you want to go on, Bruce? Explain it.
Right, no, they've added a new checkbox when you're uploading videos to YouTube. And previously, you uploaded content to YouTube and it was your copyright. And if someone else used that content, you could complain and that video get taken down or whatever. That was the way it worked because copyright is copyright. And so what they've done now, though, is say that, well, here's a little checkbox we're not going to tell you about. We're going to hide it away right at the bottom of the page where unless you push show more, most people don't bother with that second half of the upload screen. You won't even know it's there. And it's going to opt you into allowing others to sample your content for YouTube Shorts. So someone can come along and take some of your content and upload it as their own. And there's nothing you can do about it because you are automatically opted in to this basically steal my content option, which is kind of crazy. What I want to know is, are Vivo and all the other mainstream broadcasters, is their checkbox automatically ticked? I don't think it will be.
So I'm just trying this now on one of your videos.
Well, do you think, Bruce, the FAA complained to YouTube so they could then nick your video without?
Yeah, that's it.
What it'll be. It'll be because they stole my video.
It'll be Bruce's fault. It'll be Bruce's fault at the FAA. Yeah. And for those who are wondering why Vanuatu regs are for me, just before we started, about an hour ago, Bruce sent on a very interesting thing from ICAO. And I noticed in the line of the description of one of the in fact, let's just share the document.
Bang it on the screen.
I'm going to put it on the screen. That one. Is it there yet? Hurry up. Here it is. Right. So, ICAO Model US regulations. And I chuckled when I read that these model regulations are a compilation drawn from current US regulations in effect in Vanuatu, New Zealand, Australia, Canada, and the United States. So what on earth were the other model aircraft authorities doing when this was drawn up? Where were they? Now, I assume you've read this a lot better than I have, Bruce. Yeah. What's this? Where should I jump to? What's the standout?
Well, it's basically a copy of the New Zealand regulations, even in terms of the section numbers: 101, 102, 149. It's almost a direct copy. And the one things that are noticeably missing in there is there's no, just like New Zealand, there's no lower weight cutoff. So these rules apply to everything down to 1 gram or less.
Yeah.
There's no minimum level. So and they're talking about all sorts of silly things, like they're saying, that local authorities should have permission or control of the airspace over their parks and reserves. But why only for model aircraft? Why not for manned aircraft? Why for the low-risk operations, not the high-risk operations? This is all the worst of the New Zealand regulations. You've got to have observers. And interesting, when they talk about visual observers for flying FPV, the reason for the observer being there is to deconflict the airspace to make sure there are no aircraft around. So if you're flying in a shielded operation, why do you need an observer? They've obviously just cut and paste. They haven't put any thought into this. It's just ICAO has to have a position. Well, let's just cut and paste out of all these other regulators and make this our position. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely crazy. It reduces my respect for ICAO as an organisation.
Where's your 25 kilos less applicability in open category? 25 kilos.
Yeah, but there's no minimum. You're like 250 grams everywhere else.
Yeah. 25 and less.
Did I read this correctly as well, Bruce? That in here, anything over 15 kilos needs to be certified. Or was I? Did I miss?
Yeah. There's a certification.
Model aircraft in the UK up to 20 kilos. No, there's no problem at all. Over 20, we used to have like the Large Model Association, and they do the heavier aircraft. But model aircraft at a club, 15 kilos or above, got to be certified. What the?
Well, in New Zealand, it is also based on power. If it's over 75 cc's, it has to be certified. If it's over 2.5 kilowatts, I think it has to be certified. So there's not only the weight or the mass, but there's also power levels and so forth.
Oh man, that'd be a field day here, because I know people that fly, 100cc petrols. You got your fast jets. Oh my God.
Someone's saying these are the old regs. These are the regs that have just been put out, haven't they, Bruce?
I don't know. It's only brought to my attention today. Has it got a date on it? I didn't even bother checking. But
do we have a date?
Do we have a
Let's
date?
have a look.
Bureaucrats always date their work, surely.
June 23rd, 2020. So
2020 is
Oh,
not that.
it's only 11 months old. It's not old.
yeah,
Newer than the US regs.
Could be old. Whoever, what dates are these? Yeah, well, I think let's go back up. I'll tell you again, LinkedIn user, who you are. 23rd of June 2020. But it's just come onto our radar today.
I hate to say this, but the BMFA regs are better than that lot by a country mile. You know, our model rules are here. Make that look
Well,
tame.
I had a very swift look at it, and I was underwhelmed. And I've only just looked at the Part 101 bit, and it's the same numbers as here actually as well. Yeah, and what's happened here this week? We've had a double fatality in an R22 in Durban, and just across the way on the other side of the Drakensberg from me, very, very sad one. Very well, they're all sad, but in an Autogyro, unfortunately, a 12-year-old boy lost his life. A two-seat Autogyro. So 3 deaths in 1-point-something days here, and that's just little old South Africa where there's hardly any general aviation, hardly any really compared to the rest of the world. So it's just nuts. UNICEF supporting CAF to develop new regs. Okay, well, hello, Mac. CAA, it's Canadian, I guess. Is that CAAV?
No, Transport Canada's Canada.
Transport Canada.
It does mention Canada a lot in there.
Yeah, there's some real dodginess going on, and there's some real positioning of brand new experts, brand newly minted experts, left, right, and centre. And of course, tomorrow is AEVSI start date, and all the stuff's going to come out. It's interesting to see that Bell Textron have said they're going to start walking very slowly with their urban air taxi because battery technology just isn't there. So that's the man's job. I hope they don't put down the APT 70, their tail sitting, lovely looking thing. That's probably Civil Aviation Authority of Vanuatu. Okay, a UNICEF supporting that with Vanuatu, but yeah, I don't know what ICAO is up to there. BMFA, other people would be important to have in the room. I'm not sure. Is there a group of European air modelling clubs? Is there a
Well, could you imagine if what happened? Do you remember YASA when they said, "Oh, we're going to look at all the drone regulations from small unmanned aircraft and all that," and the whole modelling community in Europe just went, "Okay, we're going to email YASA and said, don't touch our hobby." They said, "Back off, we won't mess with it too much," which of course they lied. Can you imagine if we all decided to go for ICAO? Because YASA said,
well, we all do. We all have to really.
Yeah,
That's going to be that'll be the overarching authority of all of them.
So it's going to have to be time to find that ICAO email and let them have 2 barrels.
Well, funny enough, they run SUS News as their news on their website. So I've got an email. I have got an email address for a few people at ICAO. So it's
Where's the ticket?
yeah.
Where's the ticket?
Where's the ticker? Yeah. I'll reach out. I don't know if they did. Certainly a few years ago they did. They asked permission, which was very, very good of them, very decent of them.
It's crazy with the regs that are going on. It's absolutely bonkers. We fly small unmanned aircraft. We're not flying something, that weighs 400 kilos or more and has a person sat in it. It's actually the regulations for flying a microlight are less hassle than flying a drone. At that point there, something wrong with regulation.
Yeah, you've nailed it, Mark. The whole thing is that when these regulators and politicians talk drone, they're thinking those great big things that carry red cameras or delivered goods and things. They forget that the single largest section of the drone community is people flying toy foam planes in a park or at home or at a club flying field. These vastly outnumber all those commercial operations. But because the word drone is used, I think a lot of politicians probably don't even realise that model aircraft rules are. When I spoke to CAA in New Zealand, remember, the investigator I was talking to didn't realise that exactly the same rule set applied to model aircraft as applies to drones. He thought models had their own rules and they weren't drones. And he's investigating. He's an employee of CAA. He should know these things. And I think that misconception travels right through the whole thing. I think if you ask your average politician, held up a toy plane and said, is this a drone? That's going, no, that's a model airplane. Well, they don't realise that the rules that they are championing are going to affect the hobby. And so that's where we need to do the most education, educate the public. I'm going to do a video. I'm going to hold up a couple of drones and a couple of model aircraft and go, I bet you can't guess which of these are drones. And most people will go, oh, it's the ones with the propellers on the 4 propellers. But no, it'll be all of them. And that'll probably wake a few people up because they just don't realise. And nobody's making an effort to educate the public on this. Certainly not the regulators, certainly not the politicians because they don't know themselves. But no one is actually going out and saying, these are not drones. These are model aircraft. These are toys. Show me the bodies. Nothing has happened. These are safe. If we didn't have these, we wouldn't have that helicopter flying on Mars and all the complaints from Mars CAA.
And the Martians complaining.
Yeah. Well, what was I going to say? I don't know. It wasn't all that important. It can't have been all that important.
Well, I find it astonishing. And here's it is crazy that we have these small aircraft that we fly, and yet we now have more rules to fly these little things than you do if you have the microlight. Now, a microlight carries a person. There is the
skin in the game is not a factor. We've seen that so many times.
Hang on, you got there before me. Hang on, here it comes.
Skin in the game.
Gary, I am you.
If you want to fly a microlight, and you just even at a microlight site, right? You've got less rules now than getting a drone out to do a commercial job by country mile. Okay, we're skin in the game because the microlight doesn't do a risk assessment because why would you? It's got to be a certified airframe. Well, funny enough, we're getting them as well for something that weighs like up to 4 kilos, and it will come for the heavier stuff as well. We already see that if you look at the EASA stuff, they're saying that anything that's in a specific category, it's going to have all sorts of crap it's got to comply with. It's going to be astoundingly terrible. It's just phenomenal. And yet it's like drone delivery. To go point to point, you may as well just get a microlight that can carry 100 kilos of weight, get someone to fly it from A to B, because it's actually less hassle than getting a drone to do it. That's the crazy, If the regulator cannot make it as simple to do as getting into a microlight and flying, then that's it. The game is over for the drones. It's too complicated. It's too much hassle. It's just, it's crazy. It really is.
That's why the money's going to build rovers, isn't it?
Yeah, the money will drive everything. Because look, I mean, we can't fly a tiny little foam plane beyond visual line of sight. It's too dangerous. But because there's money involved, now we can fly 25-kilo delivery drones over people's houses, over their heads, and deliver stuff beyond visual line of sight because ka-ching.
Yeah. Talking of money, so our CAA has made it now. So the OSCs, what they've gone for now, so our lovely CAA in the UK, thankfully, they have a good pricing structure that they print out, and they have a system, and they go, this coming year, no price increases over 1.7%. Yet if you've got an OSC this year, it's gone up from around £200 up to £506. It's a price increase of 266%. It's absolutely crazy. I didn't read that. Sorry, I was too busy waffling.
Right, no.
It's all right. We weren't listening. We were reading.
Yeah, because John's folding his sock and typing at the same time.
Yeah, we are not a small user base. That's the problem. The problem is we don't. If we got together, there's over 200,000 operators in the UK, right? There's 200,000 people with a voice in the UK. We pay £9. It's been a bigger response than they ever expected, and that number actually is just going up. Okay, so over 200,000 people pay £9. We have a voice. The problem is our representative bodies don't always have our backing. So RPAS is, yes, a split user base, which is a problem. If you're divided, you get conquered. You know what I mean? And we are divided, therefore we will be conquered. Yeah, it's if we all backed either the BMFA, FPV UK for all the hobby flying, just join one of them. It doesn't matter. The bigger the voice they've got, the bigger the more they have, a say at the stakeholders table. RPAS is, I can't say that. We'll put that over there. They represent the commercial guys, but they've only got 200 members, and who's going to pay their fees? Because let's face it, the big boys are there to get RPAS to, as they, I can't say, because it's my personal opinion, by the way.
Oh, not that so much as that, then. Or that. Yeah.
Yeah, well, they can go that way, so they can do that.
I think the problem is that we've got these organisations pulling in different directions with their own little clique of user base, like the BMFAs, the traditional model flying, and the Mills 75 out there in the field with a little bit of ether flying around free flight in circles. And then you've got FPV UK busy flying around 1,000 feet FPV. But they're all, and then you've got the DJI drone flyers. They're all so disparate. It's hard to get one group. Can't say, join BMFA, because it doesn't offer any benefits to a lot of people. I think there needs to be a total overall umbrella group, which is just drone, just RPAS or UAS or whatever, which doesn't have anything other than the objective of making sure that people's rights are preserved and the rules are fair, and nothing to do with providing flying fields or insurance or anything like that. Just a single purpose group, which is to be represented in the bureaucratic arena, and that's what needs to happen. If we can get that going, that has a huge number of members, because you're not restricted by your particular interest. If you're flying something and it's remotely piloted, this is a group that will represent your interests. And being focused, it can do a lot with a very little amount of resource. I think that's what needs to be done. It just needs the bulk of membership, because the whole thing is, we do not have these risk assessments. No other form of human endeavor would proceed to this level of restriction and control and restraint without risk assessments. And there's no way you can tell me that this is going to be more dangerous than a 25 kilogram delivery drone, regardless of how either of them are flown, regardless of how many technical safeguards are in place with parachutes and prop guards and stuff. This will never be as dangerous as a 25 kilogram drone. So why do we have the same rules applying to everything? It makes no sense at all.
It's just crazy. I mean, don't get me wrong, right? I'm a BMFA member. So, hobby side, BMFA, they've always, in my eyes, kind of championed the good of the model flyer. I do think they should do a little bit more for the drone. But the problem is, most of their membership is, as we know, model flying. They have tried to do more for the drone community. It's...
I don't think they saw how, and I think the same to a degree for the AMA, slightly different. I think because the large model association were asked by the Civil Aviation Authority in England, would they handle the drones? They said, no, thanks. We'll just do our LMA stuff. Thanks. Because they have a great, as you've already mentioned, a great scheme for getting a certificate or a C of A for your big scale models. And it's a really great scheme. And they said, no, thanks. And I think the BMFA thought, well, they won't, the CAA won't do much. They'll get someone else to organise it. They won't touch us. And unfortunately, they didn't keep looking hard enough, I think. And I'm proud to have been a BMFA member. I'm not now because I'm a bit too distant. But the AMA, they were in it for the coin. They thought they were going to get exclusive rights to sites. They thought it was all going to be tickety-boo. And that backfired spectacularly. AEVSI is being mentioned in the comments. Well, people like them railroaded the Model Association in America because they have the money from and backing of the big military vendors. And I see this week AOPA's said just how good remote ID is going to be, and it's going to save the world and stop everybody crashing into everybody. And that's a little bit like Turkey's voting for Christmas, isn't it? Because the result is they're going to get dragged into this. We've seen this with the Model Aircraft Associations, and AOPA don't know, they plainly can't see it coming, but they're going to get dragged into this situation with the rest of us.
And the worst thing is, right, anyone that's shouting remote ID is a good thing. And I don't care if it's DJI.
You mean like Brendan Shulman?
I don't care who it is, right? Remote ID does not fix any of the issues. It has to be electronic conspicuousy or nothing. And it has to be for every aircraft. Anyone saying about remote ID is spending money twice. They are wasting money. It is pointless. Why do you think YASA and the UK have stepped back and gone,
Well, What annoys me most it is like Brendan Schulman's pushing, remote ID, because it's DJI, we've got it already, so it's great. But he's not looking at it from the perspective of anything other than what's best for DJI, but he's pushing it across as, this is great for drone users. I feel he's disingenuous on this one. I can understand his perspective where he's coming from, but I think he should temper his words with, this is good for DJI, not this is good for drone users.
They don't necessarily have the standard or the ability to put the standard into the machine that they desire, because I have it on a good authority that authorities are making sure that they won't be able to comply with
in
whatever.
In which case, I would expect DJI to have a free hardware upgrade for every drone that they've sold on the basis that we are remote ID ready. On Brendan's say-so, we've got remote ID ready. If it's not compliant, they need to update all that hardware for free.
I mean, the problem you've actually got is with DJI, their hardware is already fairly good to a degree already. It's very hard for you to go, well, you have to have this setting show up on the transmission. DJI just go, yeah, we can do that. You know what I mean? To stay ahead of that ability to go on the keyboard.
Only if Wi-Fi becomes the default transmitting standard. If we default back to Bluetooth, which is still in the mix.
But it'll Bluetooth's only 30-40 meters, and as you go Bluetooth,
I know.
I think they'll go Wi-Fi.
Sense doesn't come into this.
This is why remote ID is the most pointless system that anyone's ever come up with. It is absolutely a waste of time. So Bluetooth, it won't go in. The range is like horrendous. I mean, you try and get a decent Bluetooth device to go 400 meters. Show me that.
I think, see, there is an argument for it. See, I do get some legitimate users of it. To flip the other side of the coin, from a policing point of view, wanting to understand where a drone is that's flying over the center of a high street, it makes sense. Because the police can pitch up and go, take off points over there, let's go find him. Now, wait, we'll see. But it's how that data is used. Now, is it going to change how safe drones are? No, it's not going to affect safety in any shape or form. What it makes is catching people doing things that they probably don't know they're doing wrong, because that's the reality here. These are people who have gone to Argos, say in the UK, Best Buy, all of those places, picked up the drone. They've never read a manual. They don't bother. They just go fly it. You see it from the FPV community. They rip an arm off in an hour. From the Mavic side of things, you'll see the post saying, I just flew the Mavic Mini and I lost it. It's these people it will make life better for. But there's a misperception of how many of them there are. The problem is they think everyone is doing it wrong, and this is the problem with it.
And also, you don't send people. You don't say go and buy a car, and we're going to have rules so that when you do something wrong, we know how to get you. You teach them how to drive a car, and it's an education problem.
Well, you sort of do on a car. There's a reg plate on the front of it.
Yeah. But I mean, you put a plate on you got a plate on the side of your drone. You put a rego number on there. The thing is that we have the assumption that all these drones are acting nefariously, and people have ill intent. And I don't want to be thought of, well, unless you can prove otherwise, we assume that you're going to do something really bad. I like to live in a world where, we assume people are generally quite reasonable. And okay, there's a few bad apples, but there's bad apples in everything. People can use pressure cookers to kill people at the Boston Marathon. We do not therefore require pressure cookers to be tracked and registered and all that sort of stuff. How many people die in the UK from knife attacks? But knives are freely available in the shops, and you can use them in your kitchen. You can do whatever you like. It's like you can't always, if you always cater for the lowest common denominator, you do not have a society that's worth living in.
So here we go. I was called today by someone I know, an RAE. I won't mention their name, but one of their students got an £80 fine. So they were flying an M300 at an event. Okay, so they're flying at an event. They have their separation, the 30 and 50 meters, and the police officer gave them a fixed penalty notice because they were not 150 meters away from the event of over 1,000 people. Now, CAP 722 has changed. Now, last year, the police officer was correct. Okay, he would have been correct. You have to be 150 meters away. The new version of CAP 722 does not mention 150 meters from an event of 1,000 people. It just says uninvolved people. And as long as you keep to your 30 and 50 meters, you are not breaking the rules. However, this person was given a fine. Now, the police clearly don't know the rules. Remote ID is, again, pointless, because if I want to do something nasty or horrible, or deliver the drugs down the street, I'm going to not have remote ID installed, are you? Remote ID is there just for no reason other than you are guilty as hell. That's what remote ID is there for. You are guilty. It's a guilt control system. That's it.
They've sold themselves on having a license plate. It's a license plate. It's the only license plate they think they can have, and they've sold it to all of Parliament. They've sold it to everyone. Now the reality is, none of us want to live in that world. But to be blunt, tough crap. It's here. They've done it. We can't change it.
We can refuse to accept.
Here's my license right here. Here's my same as on my car. Right, my car's got its number plate. Here's mine on my drone. You can't see all of it because it's covered up, but it's there on top of the aircraft. If a couple wants to see it, all they've got to do is ask. Okay? Does it need to transmit electronically? My car doesn't transmit its location electronically. It doesn't say that I'm driving down a 30-mile-an-hour road at 35 or down the motorway at 100.
It does for some youngsters, though. It does for some youngsters, and there is a push for that with V2V, the vehicle-to-vehicle standard. There is a push for that.
But here's
it's not a mandated thing.
Let's say that was being flown over a school, and the police are called out. Right, let's do this. Being flown over a school with remote ID, they would be able to figure out where that pilot is fairly.
Why do they need to? It's what danger does a drone flying over a school represent? It's a drone flying over a school. Airplanes fly over schools, and we don't call the police.
But if it's flying over a school at 30 meters.
That Chinese bit of rocket flew over here earlier. We went out to see if it was there.
I can overfly a school today legally. Right, I can overfly houses today legally.
Not at 20 meters, you can't.
Well, actually, I would say with this little fella, I could. However, with my specific category, I would have to have the 50-meter separation from uninvolved people.
And is it safe? Remember the ANO mark. Remember the old rule. Is it reasonable? Is it safe? It's not all bad. It's in some ways it could help things as well. You've got to take into account, like at the moment, for instance, if there was an issue down by me, they're going to knock my door. Whereas remote ID may help against that. Don't get me wrong. There are many elements of remote ID I don't like. I do not like the fact it's transmitting openly the pilot's location. I have a big issue with that element of it. I would rather it was behind closed doors transmitting that element, and I wouldn't have too many issues then. But regardless of what we think, it's done. It's coming. Well, Brendan has been shouting about this. It's funny you say
about we talk about cars. When we talk about cars and like you got a number plate on a car, and this is just a number plate. Well, hang on a minute. How many hit and run accidents are there where the people couldn't get the number plate of the car because it was night and so forth? So surely by that basis, people have died as a result of vehicle collisions and so forth. So remote ID on cars must be a higher priority than remote ID on drones, because drones have never killed anybody. And so why aren't we dealing with the big problems? Huh?
There is a push for it on cars. There's been a push for it slowly.
Well, I'm happy to have remote ID on drones after we deal with the bigger problem first.
So in the UK, again, right, we have a big problem with electric scooters. I should think everyone's got problems with electric scooters. Over here at the minute, you can't ride one anywhere unless it's like a private place or it's one of the testing areas that they're doing. At the moment, if you go and drive your car down the Thames embankment, and I did this last year after a job, I must have had 30, 40 electric scooters on the road, all illegal, all of them, because there was no scheme in place. The police won't bat an eyelid at them. People get killed day in, day out on our roads. Those electric scooters, people have died. There was that famous YouTuber, bless her, she had a problem, and sadly, these things are not regulated at all. Sort out the things that actually kill people first would be nice, or could cause injury to someone.
Sort out the death.
One person is killed every 3 weeks on an electric scooter. Why do they keep reviving him?
Well, that's why they're illegal in the UK still. And, there's been a lot about the electric scooters over here this week because there's a trial going on in parts of the UK. And there's been some pretty bad accidents even on that trial. But look, whether we like it or not, it's, I've seen all the DJI stuff. DJI, it's probably wrong to say DJI. Brendan has heavily pushed remote ID, and I think DJI have taken the stance of let's push an element of regulation we can easily comply with. Let's look at it. It is business. Let's not get away from that. Is it safety?
Hang on, rewind the clock. Who suggested it in the first place, basically?
DJI.
It was AirMap and DJI.
Well, but Intel were testing before that as well. They've all been tickling.
How many DJI customers are going to be happy when they're flying 4 kilometers from the launch point because their drone will fly 8 kilometers and the remote ID narks on them to a policeman standing underneath and says, oh, he's 4 kilometers away, let's go and do him. And they call the cops. And all these people that use the DJI long range are going to find themselves facing big fines.
So hang on a sec. Let's take a step back, right? So we're going to want some sort of device on the drone that says where it is, how high it is, and all that. But surely we want to tell everyone, like manned aviation, where it is as well, because we don't really care where it is in relation to anything else, because it's about manned aviation and everything. Surely, surely making electronic conspicuously for everything would be better. It would save money because you don't have to develop 2 systems. You just develop the one in the first place. Therefore, it negates all the issues around remote ID. It takes all that, just chucks it with electronic conspicuously. We have one device that does it for everything. And therefore, problem solved throughout.
You're thinking
we could have low-cost sensors all on the ground all over the place, and I don't know, we could take all that data from manned and unmanned aircraft and bring it into some sort of scheduling system or system that would be sort of unified, and it would be all about the traffic and management.
Manned aircraft don't need to know where drones are because we have the obligation to yield right of way at all times. The only people who need to know are the people operating the drones where the manned aircraft are. Because manned aircraft have no obligation to get out of the way. We have to get out of the way. So therefore, we don't need remote ID, but all manned aircraft do need ADS-B, and then the problem goes away.
You've got to get the car, though. You're thinking about this wrong. You're thinking about this from safety. This isn't about safety. It's about control. Safety has nothing to do with it. And this is about control. End of. Politicians can't wait 25 years for the aviation industry to decide on a standard, right? We all know they've struggled to get ADS-B in, right?
It's not in.
It's still not in, right? And this is hand on heart. Government cannot wait for the dinosaur aviation industry to move. So government, and more importantly, police and anti-terror, want a solution now. And that solution is basically remote ID. And that's why
I'm glad you said dinosaur aviation, because I wanted to bring in sometime this evening that I want to make another DA, and I'm going to add it to that. So it's dinosaur aviation versus digital aviation. I want to make digital aviation a thing, because that's the way we've got to think about it. The old man stuff, it must get out of the way. It must get out of the way. The new kids are coming, and it's not being thought correctly. There will be. I'm really glad that Bell Textron are moving out of the urban air taxi space, as are a few others. There's a few left shouting and going, but we know it's not going to happen. But there will be stuff delivering 20 or 30 kilos. There'll be a new size of aircraft that is unmanned, uncrewed, unpersoned. That'll come along, and it'll be great, and it'll make a difference. But it'll be digital aircraft. And
I mean, point to point makes sense. You know, if you've got a warehouse outside a city and you've got the Amazon collection center in the middle of the city, it makes sense to take 30 kilos of goods or 50 kilos of goods from that warehouse to that Amazon collection point. That would make sense. Point to point makes sense. To your house is pointless.
Oh, yeah. No, well, that won't happen. But 20 or 30 kilos going to a major place to a major place.
But didn't manned aviation in the UK, when they were going to get electronic conspicuously, didn't they throw out their dummy in a serious way a few years ago?
Yeah. That has all around the world. AOPA were dead against it. They were dead against it. And this week, they're very for rid for us.
So, you know, there's two. We're now the biggest in the UK. We're now the biggest air user. End of discussion. You know, you can't tell me there's over 200,000 manned aviation out there. We must outnumber them somewhat. Yeah, it's not for us to make the change. It's too expensive for us. Hang on a minute, make them do it. Because, like you say, we need to know where they are. That's easy for us to do. So we can do that because Bruce has got the device there. We could just all get those little devices that Bruce has made, and we can see the ADSB. We can see all the inputs. Yeah, we can. Yeah, I've got one somewhere as well, he says. I think I can play that. Yeah, I've got one as well.
Too easy. It's too easy.
Yeah. Like Bruce says, we need to just see them. We get out of their way. It's not for them to get out of our way. You know, if we can see them, safety becomes a non-issue.
It's just pointless arguing this like this. It's no one listening. Are we just going to be rammed down whatever our throats is? I'm seeing some. There's lots of things I can't say.
Well, you could, but
no, I can't. I can't. I have seen evidence of some thumping, double speak, and I'm not from industry, so of any industry ever. So I suppose that's my problem. I'm sure every industry suffers from mega bullshit to get stuff through, whatever it is, be you making cars, selling ice creams, or whatever. But there's been some spectacular bullshit going down recently, and I know of like healthcare organisations that are now doing due diligence on the people that are saying whatever they're saying, and getting in other grown-ups to point out that they were never in some places, never did some things. So people are being found out, but I'm constantly astonished by the lies that are told. But that, I suppose that's life. I don't know. Someone else rant now. Sorry, that wasn't a very good rant, and I can't say anything about it.
At the end of it, DJI have a lot invested in it. I think I think we have to understand DJI have been in a difficult position as well. They unfairly or fairly, you got the White House issue, which look, they didn't fly the drone and land it on that lawn, yet they took a lot of the hassle for that. The pissed up guy, pardon my French, took the drone out and landed it on the lawn. I think what they chose was let's not pretend it's directly about safety, but I think no company in their right mind is going to say we're doing this because it suits us. It does suit them very, very much if it was a simple system.
I don't understand how remote ID would stop that problem.
It won't. It's a tick box.
Yeah, because
it's a tick box. That's what it is.
We know we can take any of our aircraft, right? We know we can take any of them. We don't have to put remote ID on it. We can launch it from wherever we want, and it will land within, say, 4 to 6 meters of where we want it to be. Okay, that's just reality. Making some sort of law come out, say, you've got to have remote ID because it'll stop drugs being delivered to prisons. That's just mass bullshit BS, isn't it? And we all know that. Remote ID doesn't do anything. A copper shows up. That drone's flying over there. Is that drone over there yours? No. Oh, well, it's got no remote ID. Is it yours? No, it's not. You're holding the controller. I found it on the floor just before you showed up. He
lies very effectively. He's done this before.
He's got a lie.
He's interfaced with the police before at this level.
Interface. So let's just rewind a tiny bit. What's the chap that's facing the 80 quid fine going to do? Going to go and say, hang on a minute.
A lady that got done.
Oh, well, just narrow it down even more. Why don't you? Which town by which police?
We can't be gender specific. Not on YouTube.
I suspect they're going to appeal because the copper was wrong, and I hope they do, because it's showing that the police don't know the rules. They're not keeping up with the law.
Where's our barrister when we need him? But we should have. He needs to get onto that.
He needs to give him his number, like most of them.
Yeah. Yes, true. Very true. Richard would probably have a word to say on that.
The thing is, when you look at these rules, everything we can do that endangers people or property is already covered by some other rule.
Yes.
There are so many laws out there already that you're not allowed to endanger people's lives, no matter how you do it. You're not allowed to endanger their property, no matter how you do it. So these are just repeating things that are already in place in other parts of the laws of the land. It's just creating work for bureaucrats, giving sort of enforcement people the opportunity to scrape a little more coin more easily. It's just ridiculous overreach, massive overreach.
And it's like they're on about privacy rules for drones. Well, hang on a minute. We already have privacy rules and laws on that. So why create new ones for drones? It's pointless. Like Bruce says, why create something twice? We already have rules on if you're a nuisance. Do you need a new one for a drone? No, you don't. Just use the law that exists already. Why create more and more paperwork?
Because drones are not a risk to personal property. Generally speaking, the small drones we fly are not a risk to personal property. Therefore, they can't control us under existing regulations. They have to come up with new regulations that control us, even though what we're doing doesn't represent a danger or a risk. It's all about, as Gary said, it's all about control. It's all about control. And if you can't control people because they're not breaking the rules, you make up new rules that they can break.
Yeah, sadly, you're probably right there. That's a scary thing. That's the scary bit, really, to be honest. It's like the new drone thing that's going through. It's just crazy.
I want to know more about this hydraulic drone. What?
Well, flying over water, Gary. Flying over water.
Oh well, of course. Yeah, silly me. It'd probably go in a tube. What I'd do is I'd put it in a tube and I'd call it a new method of transport. By the way, there goes my cash up to the anyway.
Hyperloop.
Yeah, Hyperloop. Yes. Drop the R. Just drop the R. That's a very good idea. Yeah. So look, we haven't spoken anything about what's the latest DJI. There must be a new DJI model. There must be a new DJI thing because every week for the last 10 we've said something. What they released this week, Ian? No, nothing. Oh,
it's quiet now.
They do have ND filters.
Someone was telling me that the Mavic 3 Pro's due out at the end of towards August, September. Yeah, but probably. I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, I still think probably whether we'll see an Inspire 2 this year, Inspire 3 this year remains to be seen. I think the Mavic's inevitable. If you look, really, the A2 replaces the Mavic 2, so now they'll kick that up a gear. But their timescales will be dependent on how the world goes, really, and if the world starts to travel, I suspect they've got a lot sitting there because it makes you wonder what they've been doing for 2 years if they haven't, because they've done very little for 2 years. I suspect they're in a position.
A load of people, didn't they?
They just got rid of people. That's all they did. So I suspect there's a few product ready to go. There's some interesting handheld stuff still to come, which I did know about, which I can't talk about. I won't be involved in, but I still can't talk about it. But that's not really drone related. But I think from a drone side of things, there's a lot of interest in. There's a lot of noise starting to whip up by the FPV guys. I think the realization that it really is a crap cinematic drone is beginning to land with people. It really isn't good at doing general footage.
I noticed you were struggling to find good things to say about the ND filters. They can make your footage even more noisy if you had enough filtering.
The ND filters do exactly what they're meant to do. The problem is shit in, shit out, and that's to be blunt. That's the problem with it, isn't it?
I've got some of those free will. I'm reviewing. The best thing is that if you use them, you won't scratch your camera lens quite so easily.
The filters are great. Freewell make outstanding filters. The problem is trying to fly the FPV drone cinematically is extremely hard. It doesn't behave particularly well in anything but perfectly flat conditions, and it's just not a great camera drone.
It's a good really area.
And I still don't like that camera. It's kind of dark and it's kind of limited dynamic range, and it's noisy. It's
just noisy all the time. And at that day I filmed, right, I had it as bright, as good as it gets, and I'm standing there going, I can see noise in the sky. Why is there noise? There's as much light as it ever needs, and yet there's noise. So,
hey, BMS Weber in the chat. Look, famous people.
BMS. Oh, hello, BMS.
Yeah.
Oh,
so there's another news. Did you see that drone from France? That that article. Did you put a?
Yeah, hang on. I did. Hang on. Yeah. Hang on.
Very impressive.
The modular job.
The modular job. The engineering and stuff they've done on that looks very, very nice. I had a message with the gentleman back and forth, and
Hexadrone. Here we go.
Hexadrone. This is. I like this a lot, and what I like is the clever engineering.
Let me just get a version up. I'm just going to get another. Look, if we were like professional, you'd have told me about this beforehand, and I'd have had this ready. But we're not.
Does it have the blinking lights for remote ID? Wasn't that a French thing?
Oh, they had that wonderful thing over there, didn't they? They wanted to have them more. I think personally that's how it should have gone. Morse code all day.
Most of my drones just send smoke signals these days.
And I'll be honest, this looks more professional than what Sony put out in their images.
It does. It does.
It really does. This looks the bees. The absolute the engineering that's gone involved to the locking, the removable arms and everything. You just think these guys have done an outstanding job here.
But look at this. Just dear viewer, if you're thinking about sending me a press release, and I'd love you to send me a press release, but put the amount of thought that they've put into this image. Because look, there's a phase 1 camera there. There's the hearing. If you're in the industry, you know all those bits, don't you? Yeah. That's an instant assembly of. That's interesting bits.
I told them to send it to you because they put some stuff up, and I was like, "Have you sent this to Gary at SUS News?" And they were like, "Who?" I was like, "There's the website."
Your reputation precedes you, Gary.
No, I think they are very French. They're lovely guys, but I don't think they speak much English or outside of it. So I think they've had a bit of a shock how much interest they've had with this.
Yeah, know what they're doing now. Look, there's a phase 1. There's the healing. You can see what everything is in there, can't you? And yeah, there's lots of other nice images. It does look like a very nice thing. Now they're having a when is it? May 18th. A live cast about it. It's probably going to mostly be in French, but yeah.
But is it wrong? It looks better engineered and more interesting than what Sony put out. Do you see what I mean on this?
No. Sony just looks like what's those cheap frames? I can't remember.
Flame Wheel 450.
A Chinese one.
Yeah, I can't remember those.
Yeah, the RC Timer version.
The RC Timer version. Yeah. Hang on. Funny,
but it is crazy. You see some, and we're starting to see some small companies. We had the gentleman on last week that's making some really nice looking stuff as well. You're starting to see. It's funny. You got someone like Sony walk in and as if to say, "Wow, look what we've done," and you just sit there and go, "That's 4 years old, mate." Now you're starting to see these guys, these little companies, really drive innovation, really start to show. Sony have just built a drone. It's just any drone. It's a frame. Yes. There's nothing in it where you think, that looks clever. That looks tidy.
Yeah. I mean, bespoke drone building, I think, is really coming along now. I mean, I see Tetra Drones. They're local to me, UK-based company. They build some cracking stuff. I mean, it's absolutely fantastic. A lot of it I can't say what I've seen, but it's just... these drone companies now are just beginning to come into their own. And like you say, first looking at the Sony stuff, yeah.
Well, I think they just see, it's a drone. What we're going to do is put a camera on the bottom of it. To show. Sony didn't even put a Sony sticker over the Gramsci gimbal. The Sony has a Gramsci gimbal on the bottom. They didn't even put a sticker over that. And, they've looked at this and gone, this is our new high-tech drone. High-tech 5 years ago. You've got the people who've been doing this for 4 or 5 years now are starting to really come out with some interesting stuff, and Ben's making stuff. It's not going to be easy to walk into this market and do something different.
Yeah. I mean, the ones I saw the other day.
He's getting ready for a ban. There's too much common sense coming out of John.
The S800 was making very good
on target.
Although those arms were a little bit flexible at times. The 900 was a bit better on that side of things.
But I think how bespoke drones are a dying thing. I don't think.
No,
I
think
I agree. I don't think I agree, because especially if the guys have come from the industry, and that's what I saw about that French thing. You just look at it and go, "Oh yeah, they've done some work. They've actually done some flying." It's very hard for Sony and people like that to catch up with those buyers. I suppose it's about niches. I don't know. Bruce will have an opinion about business. It always has better opinion about
I have an
business.
opinion about nothing.
No, fair enough then. Yeah, okay.
I mean, the bespoke drones that I've seen built from Tetra Drones are all kinds of things, from things that can land on water, so they're being used for research, they land on water. I've seen the hybrid one with the petrol engine in. It's just some of the stuff, it's just amazing. It blows my mind at times. I look at it and go, I wish I could build stuff that good. You know what I mean?
It does make it. Where the hell is the later M600s, the V3s? I would love to sit some of DJI's product managers. They owned the cine market, period, for a period. And they have sat there and watched it go to everyone else. And you do have to wonder why. Why was the M600 not replaced with a newer model? Why? Where is the tech from these? Why have they abandoned that market? It's a strange one, isn't it? Because it's
I mean, Vulcan Shop, the Vulcan airframes, they do really well in the media production side in the UK, don't they? They're nice machines. The Vulcans, they're just lovely. They are really nice.
I think, Harry, I think the demand is moving. I think the industrial drone, and you've got companies now competing, not even competing with DJI. DJI they have one product now, which is the M300. That's it. They have one product in the enterprise space for the most part, and it's the M300. And everything else is portable. Mavic, people don't want the thermal Mavics. We're talking stuff that can carry unusual payloads. So it's M300. Why isn't there a range of 5 aircraft here of different sizes? They can do it. It makes no sense.
I mean, the only thing I really like about DJI is, unlike the rest, is their smart batteries. Some stuff, and
Bruce loves them.
Smart batteries are great, don't get me wrong, and you can just the other thing that's really hard to beat with DJI, and this is probably the hardest thing for any developer to kind of match them on, is the camera integration. If you look at the M300, the M210, any of the DJI ones, where you can just change the camera over, plug clips in, and just works, that is so hard to beat. Do you know what I mean? Even for the bespoke developers, they have to find a way to somehow cross a few hurdles sometimes with some of the hardware. But DJI, you try and find a camera that can compete with the M300.
But it's not a one trick. It is interesting. They see, and Louis mentioned it there. They've abandoned the low volume market. But the problem with abandoning what you perceive as the low volume market is that will turn into a high volume market for everyone else. And that's what they seem to have done. They've the stuff that they're not interested in, the stuff they're only selling a few of. But the problem is when you let those people go to other products, then you lose them when it moves to high volume. And I think they've made some strange decisions around that side of things. I still do. I don't get it. I don't get it. There should be at least 3 or 4 enterprise bigger models right now. There should be.
You don't think it's due to the restraints put on by the USA that's constricted that market quite a bit? It's a small market because these big drones are going to be used more likely for industrial and commercial applications, sensitive targets, that sort of thing, where they're not going to be able to use them.
Yeah, it's weird. It's strange. But look, where DJI lose, there are some fantastic companies, and Hexadrone are one of them, and that is something looking very, very interesting indeed.
Hubsan, EA Sheen, all those companies walking in the door.
Absolutely. What do we say? RC Timer. I got this. I found this out the other day. That's an RC Timer RG pilot from back in the day. Can't remember which version.
I've got one of those.
Have you?
Yeah. Never used it.
This one, I can't remember the crash that this one had. This sounded quite good because it's bent these pins. That was a good one, that one had. What was I going to say? I was going to say, don't we think, though, I think, well, I'm going to tell you what I think. I don't care what you think. I'll
tell you what you think.
Oh, you'll tell me what I think. Fair enough. I think the delivery drone side of things, which there are more and more press releases for, and it's not just because I'm biased and I quite enjoy that idea. I think that is going to push weight categories up a little bit, and we are going. I have a feeling that I'll say 150 kilo maximum all-up weight certifiable airframe will become very much a thing, and they'll be able to carry a great big payload around, camera, LiDAR, whatever, all day. And absolutely, certainly in the LiDAR fit, they'll be able to match most contenders now, manned contenders. Maybe not for the big camera platforms, but other things. So I think we're going to, I can see the inspection market moving bigger fixed wing, flying all day, carrying terabytes of data. I don't see why you'd faff around with a multi-rotor.
It's still. I mean, I've been asked to do a mapping job for someone with the Believers, and they like 9 flights or something with the Phantom 4 Pro or whatever they're using. You look at it and you go, well, that's like maybe the size of the area they want to do. Actually, if you took off from the middle of it, because the Believer's so big, and I'm not limited to 500 meters anymore, I'm looking at it going, that could be one flight, or it's going to have to be 2. But I'm just thinking, it'll just chuck it, just chuck the aircraft in the air. Why would you faff around? Because with the P4 Pro, you've got to move around all day. You'll spend 7 hours trying to get to the varying locations. It's a fixed wing. Just get to the highest point and chuck it.
Do you think Elon Musk hasn't figured out if he puts cameras on his Starlink satellites, he can do all that stuff from space much more cheaply, much more cost effectively, without permissions and authorities and
he hasn't got the patent for that. He doesn't
need a patent in space. There's no patents in space.
There's no patents in space.
Interestingly, so Google Maps is built from planes flying at high altitude. That's all you need, a plane at high altitude if you want to do mapping. You don't need a satellite in space. That's pointless. You may as well just get a plane, put a great big cameras underneath it, and fly.
Yeah, but planes cost a lot of money to fly. Once you get a satellite in orbit, it's free, mate. There's no fuel costs. There's nothing else. It's there doing other things as well. In terms of cost effectiveness, don't overlook satellites. You can already hire satellite time and get pictures of what you want from where you want all around the world. And I think this is it. Given that we're talking about 40,000 satellites in these some of these clusters they're putting up, I think they'll look for other uses for these satellites. And I think the mapping with drones may become less of a market than it is now because of the satellites.
Yeah, there's lots of pinching happening on it. Lots of ways of collecting that data.
Well, don't remember, there is the problem, though, where you get that big lump that's going to come back down to Earth.
Oh, yeah.
Have you seen the size of the Starlink satellite? It's only about this big. About that big.
No. China launched theirs, and they've lost control, haven't they, of the main boosting parts.
That's an AliExpress delivery, isn't it? Look out!
Yeah, that's going to be a bit of a mess.
But I think there's going to be specialist close range stuff that has to be done by drones. Perhaps it's a multi-rotor. It's a bridge. It's underneath the bridge. It's whatever that the fixed wing platform isn't going to get over. But a lot of the work. Look, my chum with the Believer did 38,000 hectares in 3 days. It's a tidy platform. You just there's no multi-rotor unless you're getting into some sort of hybrid thing or hydrogen thing. But then
Louis raises a good point in the comments.
Hang on, Louis does. Keyhole. Is that a good keyhole? Yes. Oh, yes. I do remember that a long time ago. Is that the comment you meant?
No, also I'm thinking of that. Didn't Britain recently buy into that satellite network that the low Earth orbit satellite network? I mean, there's a lot of intelligence gathering that can be done from that. Yes, they use the premise of, it's a commercial internet service, but hey, we're actually going to be gathering information because New Zealand's been kicked out of Five Eyes, so now we've only got Four Eyes.
Yes. And your ones are better, so it's fine. Let's just have a little look at the Starlink.
Oh, there was a new link. There was a launch today, wasn't there, of Starlink? So So the booster that launched today, it was its 9th flight, which is astounding.
Let's just make sure the coverage is coming.
Worrying when they can't afford new rockets, eh?
I hope this chain is up.
I think he said after the 3rd launch or something, it's basically paying for itself. I think it takes three flights of a Falcon 9, and it's paid for itself, something like that. And
I wonder if some of these are the lower ones. There's a 495. They're not, are they? 500, because he's got permission to fly some lower, hasn't he?
Yeah. So he can start dropping them down.
Yeah. The our FCC, ICASA, have said that whatever happens in this country has to be owned by South Africans. You can't do anything here on the ground.
Yeah, elaborate, Gary, because that was interesting. All the digital IP created in South Africa belongs to the government now.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
So if you write a song or publish a song or a movie or a TV series, the government owns that.
That's where we start. Well, they're proposing that that's going to happen, and that's where we started our conversation earlier about YouTube that you've discovered. But that is astonishing, and this will be just imagine being able to fly your RPAS anywhere here. We won't need no stinking 5G.
But 5G is now out of date already. You know, they're saying,
I just got my inoculation.
Yeah, so have I.
Have you had yours?
No, I haven't. I gave mine to Ian. He's just had his.
So how is the rollout there? Because I mean,
see, he's been totally quiet. He's being absorbed by the flat Earth gamma rays now.
Bill Gates is tracking me, although I think I'm the least of his problems.
But Melinda won't because I'm divorced.
Yeah. So I'm thinking I'm the least of his problems after today.
I met them once, but that's
his marriage has had the blue screen of death, eh?
Control Alt Delete.
When I met him, she was telling him off, so I've seen him tell him off. So
do you know? It's funny you say that, right? That's the second person I know who was with Gates I've heard of, who also said he was getting told off by his wife.
They came to fly in a balloon in Kenya, and when they come in, we all had to be like wear our best shirts and everything, best gold bars. And but the security detail came in first, and we used to have these big ornamental rocks all around the launch site, and they screamed in and reversed straight over and ramped one of these cars onto one of the rocks. It was great. So we were like, very good indeed, very, very good. That was great. And then my mate, he sold the toilet seat on eBay. Anyway,
was that your mate driving the Toyota that got shot at with all the money in the back that's gone around on the
that wasn't money, mate. That was iPhones. Yeah, that was my mate.
It wasn't GPUs.
Oh. No, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that was a little slice of daily life here for you. It happens a lot. As I say, normally what they do is they normally ram those things over because they're armored all around, but they haven't done anything about the bottom, and then they like open them with a tin opener underneath and shoot the people from underneath and get at everything that way. So that
bulletproof undies, the order of the day.
Bulletproof undies, very much. Well, I thought that guy had the big kahunas actually because what you don't see in that video clip is he was smashing the Audi back when he was reversing. He was banging it back, and they got out and ran away. And when he got out with the machine gun. So yeah, that obviously that made the news here. 5G rollout is fast. I just must catch up with the comments here.
Well, they're rolling out over here. We're having a big push on rural internet over here at the minute. But if the British government owns OneWeb, right, why would we do it? Why would you waste money on landlines? You've got SpaceX that can now get their system here, okay, and we've got OneWeb, which covers part of the UK as well. What?
Well, I laughed. I went to a 5G thing. It was the Dorset rural broadband roll, and it was 5G. But Dorset isn't rural. There's nothing rural. There's no hill you can't stand on in Dorset where you can't see another light, a power line, there's nowhere in the UK that's rural.
The
Lincolnshire.
The Archers.
Dan Archer and all them. Where are they?
Dan Archer, he's in the grave, mate.
Why, or it's got dropsy, or more. We need them turpentine.
They're around Birmingham. They're around Birmingham, basically. Then.
I mean, we get 3G in places. I mean, I'm all right because I'm on the edge of the city here. But if I go, I think about 1.5 miles out to one of the villages, there's a massive black spot in the mobile network. Every time I drive through it, if I'm on the car phone, I just go, you're going to get cut off in a minute. And they go, why is that? Well, I'm entering the dead zone. And it's a couple of miles across. And literally Lincoln, and then just outside it by 2 miles, nothing.
Can you show us that next week?
They were telling us all about how 5G was going to make life amazing. And for why? I don't get it. Again, my age is shining through. I don't understand the fuss.
And here's the thing about 5G. So in your mobile phone, your smartphone, you get a data allowance, Bruce. Okay, I know you don't have a smartphone, Bruce, so I'll just explain. It allows you to get data, okay, on your phone.
Data. He's the character on Star Trek, isn't he?
Yes, that's right.
That's right.
That's right. So you get a data allowance on your smartphone, and it could be 5 gigabytes, for example. Yeah, you see, Bruce, that's not quite going to. I don't know where mine is. So we all have like a data contract. The problem is with 5G, that 5 gigabyte you've got that you can use could literally be gone in a second anyway, and you'll start getting charged for more data straight away because 5G can just shove so much at you if you can get it and you can use it. It's crazy.
Well, I'll find out because hopefully they'll be delivering my Starlink antenna before very long.
It's called solar power. That's why I don't worry about if I had Starlink in the UK. I would just use solar power.
Well, now you've mentioned solar power.
Well, they put a little dome on them instead of heating up the dish.
Well, yes.
So snow. If it's cold, it's got to melt the snow to keep it's clear of snow.
Yeah, but if you put a dome on it, the snow will fall off the dome. That's what they do with full-size dishes.
Yes,
they heat them up. They just put a big dome around them. I mean, it's a low-tech solution to a high-tech problem. Saves you power.
Yeah,
it's the power saver version. Even cheap. Well, we're talking about now, Ian. Have your solar panels arrived?
No, tomorrow. So I've gone on a bit of a spending spree, and then had to cancel an order, and then replace an order, which ended up costing me another 200 quid. My plan originally was to go fully used. And then I realized it's not worth it on panel pricing. Panels have dropped so much. It's incredible. You can get about a 320 watt panels for about £105 each in the UK now. That's fully certified panels, whereas they were like £200-300 before. Yeah. And if you look at used panel prices, people are charging sort of £60 to £80 per panel. It's just not worth the £20 saving because you're losing these are normally 220 watt panels that have been pulled out of a PV site somewhere. It wasn't worth it. But the plan was to go for a used inverter, because it is incredible how cheap inverters are on eBay in the UK right now. You can pick them up for £130 to £150 for a 1500 watt.
Can't you just mount the panel upside down?
No, you can't invert the panel that way, Bruce. You have to invert it with the box. The box has to be on the back of the panel and flip it. So the plan was to go.
Panels, they're already upside down.
The plan was to go with a used inverter. However, I then hit a roadblock that I cannot register a used inverter legally in the UK now. They all have to be G98 compliant. Now, whilst you have to, there's a law in the UK, Gary's fallen off the radar, that you have to let your DNO or the energy supplier you're generating. You just have a requirement to say, I am generating, but the requirement is for the equipment now to meet a certain standard. It's a bit like gas. Those standards, if you have one already, it's fine because you registered it back then, if you know what I mean. But if you were to do it today, it has to meet the correct standard. So the choice I then had was go illegal or legal. And there was only £100 in it. So it wasn't, and I'll be honest, if I want to make some content on it, it's saying I'm going to bolt this onto my wall and not tell them isn't a good position to be in.
If you use the insurance.
Yeah, well, legally it's okay because there are thousands of people with these inverters. It's that category. These you weren't allowed to register these, and it was that big. And that was the biggest.
You say that to all the girls.
He comes back. Yeah. So basically, there's basically 3 standards for inverters, or been 3 or 4. Originally, it was, I think, G83-1, which was up to about 2013, G83-2 to about 2019, and now it's G98. But the basics are,
and that's the 445 from Stoke Newington.
Yeah.
Stopping at.
But the basics are, I can get a brand new Chinese-made inverter that comes with 10 years warranty for like £100 more than the used one, which is fully legal. So I ended up doing that. But there are thousands of those PV installs out there that you just can't. They will not accept you certifying it, or not. It's not even a certification. All you actually have to do is say, I have a micro generation system of this wattage with this compliant hardware. And they won't accept the old hardware today, whereas they would.
Who's they?
The DNO. So
who's the DNO?
They in the UK, you have your electric provider, but behind them you have the energy network. So it's the network provider, the actual people who provide the cabling to your property. So
this assumes you're going to have backfeed back into the network.
Yeah, well, it's grid tie. It has to be grid tie. Unless I go full off grid. So if I'm doing grid tie, you have to notify, and then it has to be of a certain compliance. And there isn't a lot of differences. When I was reading the differences between the compliance, it's how it behaves in certain situations. They've improved over the years. So it has to have a certain cutoffs, a certain internal cutoffs if something happens. Some of the inverters have been firmware upgradable to comply. You know, some of them have literally been changed the software to allow it, but there has been some hardware differences. So I ended up cancelling the used inverter and buying a brand spanker.
So my question then, Ian, for you is, what meter do you actually have in your house? Do you have a dial?
No, I don't. I have a smart, unfortunately. I don't have a windy back. I wish I did.
They either stop the meter or they do spin it backwards. There were some meters, the winding meters, some of them, they used to have a pin that would stop it from being back wound anyway, and it would just stop. When I first had my solar panels, they used to spin my meter backwards like 1.0.
Yeah, that's the thing. You know, if you had an existing system and your inverter died, you can go on eBay and replace it for like 150 quid. There's a crazy thing. There's an inverter on there which you can't certify today, which is the inverter in my family's home. That was like a $2.5 grand inverter, and you can buy a brand new one in a box for 300 quid today. But you can't certify it. But if you needed to replace yours, it would just be off and on and carry on. Or you don't tell them. You know, you could legit, you know, on a 1500 kilowatt system, 1500 watts, sorry, not 1500, yeah, 1500 kilowatt would be all time. Yeah.
Powerful way.
We're heading for megawatt. No, with the what, you know, I'm probably at best going to be feeding in 1 kilowatt. My average home usage is about 100, or no, my average home usage with no one home is about 190 watts. That's the router. That's all of that crap you have on. Mm-hmm. So at very best, I'd be feeding in maybe 1350 watts. Would they really notice that? Is that going to cause the grid to fall over? No, it isn't. But you still want to be compliant.
Yeah, I mean, it's solar panels to me are great. I mean, I love the fact I've got them. I just need the battery now. So I want the battery as the next part of it. Because once you've got the battery in,
don't you have a battery?
What are you doing with your drone batteries when you're not flying?
No, UK doesn't really use battery, Gary, at all. Battery over here is very rare.
Wow. So it's just
everything over here is
the
feed. Well, the original feed-in. See, in the old days, you had what you called FIT. You got FIT, Mark. You must. So the original feed-in tariff was they paid you for generation, not usage. So no matter what you did, they paid to generate. So my family has the original tariff, which is like 60p a kilowatt now. Now the funny one is, you could use all of that energy. They didn't care. They paid you to generate. So it was in your interest to use as much of it as you could to save your own bill. But they've now moved. That's gone. It dropped from 50p down to 30p, down to 20, down to 14. Now you can, if you have it certified, get a micro generation payment per kilowatt, which is about 4p. And it isn't worth me having it certified to do that, because it's going to cost me like 500 quid to have someone certify it. I'm never going to recover that at 4 pence a kilowatt. It's just not going to happen.
Your smart meter's going to have a hissy fit, mate.
Oh, it's fine. No, you're sorry.
I warn you now, your smart meter's probably going to have a hissy fit because it'll not know where that power's coming from.
No, well, my one is fairly new, so it should be fine.
Okay.
The DNO have already they give you a list of it's only the certain ones that they don't like, but yeah, it's the idea for me is a little bit of a project, and to try and to give you an idea, my energy usage is about double the average household. Last year we used 8,000 kilowatts of power. That was my bill for last year. The average household is 4,000.
Well, when you heat up those USB connectors to such an extreme level, that will start.
The amount of he uses to fix those radios. It's just
it sounds like a huge amount of use.
3D printer,
and it is, and it is all of that gear. That if you take into account, we replaced my TV this year, and that was my plasma was nearly 750 watts. My old Panasonic plasma, wow. And in lockdown, my kids had that on 12 to 14 hours a day. So that's where it was. I sat back and looked at where my energy usage was, because last year I am spending about my monthly electricity and gas combined is 160 quid a month right now.
I spend just to have the electricity connected here, for the connection and the right to have a pole, about 300 quid a month, and about 90 quid in actual power.
There's no one stolen your pole yet, Gary.
You need a wireless connection.
Yeah. See, if you say the type said these down to 3,600 before solar. Yeah, we are heavy usage, but I've done some math, and it's not one thing. I had a lot of heating in this workshop last year because I was working from home, and that it was very in winter. That was electric. It was bloody freezing, Gary. I've worked out. I spent the weekend, as sad as this is, monitoring what everything costs, and I'm about 400 watts right now. This setup is about 400 watts. The channel, the computer, the lighting. So if I could, sometimes I'm in here 4 hours, 5 hours a night, some nights. So it all adds up.
Thank you, just to leave some lipos charging on the bench, isn't it?
It would be, yeah. Well, it does come to now is I have been looking at batteries and battery storage next, and what the options are. There's some real interesting, but it's the cost of the batteries. I've done some math, and 510 amp hour leisure batteries would be a very good position to be in. That would get me about 4 kilowatts.
Yeah, if you're going to go house powering, you want to be hitting around 7.2 to 8.
Yeah.
From what I can tell, you need to be, the sweet spot's around 9.6 kilowatts for your house, because if you've got a bad day and you don't get enough sunlight coming in, it can't always give the batteries enough of a kick. But you can get some really smart stuff now where if you're on like Octopus, I think it Agile, what it can do is the batteries will charge at night. So when the price of electricity drops to 5p, the batteries go charge. Yeah. It sucks in that power, and then during the daytime when the power goes up to 30p, it goes, "You're on the battery, don't worry about it." It's quite amazing. There's stuff there.
We all moaned about Gatwick because at least gave us drone related.
Well, this is pull up a sandbag. In 2010, when I flew at Farnborough, we actually did charge the aircraft there from a solar panel quite deliberately to be able to say we've charged this from a solar panel. So if I was in the field in Africa, I would have been able to fly. So this is definitely going to be part of a lot of people's life. A couple of panels on back of the trailer of the ground control station that lives inside, battery pack for charge and stuff. It is.
When we're flying mini quads away from the airfield, I was seriously considering getting a couple of 100-watt panels and some 5-button chargers and using that for field charging because heaps of power there. And actually on the weekend, I used my little solar-powered power bank to recharge my little EA Sheen Mustang. So I was solar powered all weekend on that plane.
There you go.
If you do the math on one of those panels, the panels are generally they're about 32 volts on a standard PV panel, and you're about 320 watts at that voltage. One of those panels you could just easily pull out the back of the floor and toss on the car and toss on the floor to field charge. As you said, there's a lot of opportunity here for that stuff.
So my model flying club, which is just 10 miles that way, they actually have a couple of solar panels, and we have a big like car battery, lorry battery, and there's a warning on the side. It says do not draw more than 20 amps. But you could literally, if you go down to my model flying club, you can take 2 LiPos with you, and you can fly all day as long as you take a charger. Literally, they've got 6 points for plugging in, so you can have 6 chargers on. The only rule is that between all of them, you can't pull more than 20 amps. And as long as you do that rule.
Well, this is interesting.
Well, we've got mains at the airfield, so we can run all the chargers there. And when it's getting too many amps because everything starts smoking, but you just back off, just unplug someone's battery and wait for the smoke to clear. In fact, Ian would be right at home in the charger.
I'd be right at home on that one.
Yeah. But having power at the field is amazing because you don't have to charge your batteries the night before and then find it rained, so you've got to discharge them. You just go out with batteries on storage, charge them as you use them, and you can get by with just a few batteries because, basically 4 to 1. If you want to fly all the time, then, one in the air, 3 on the chargers.
Do you remember the day when you used to take that tub of smelly glow fuel, right? And you had to have that tub of glow fuel.
Yesterday, you mean?
Yeah, that's it. Yesterday. So when you hand wind it into the plane, you're covered in that gunk, right? That's just
how archaic. You handle. I've got electric fuel pump, man.
Solar powered fuel pump. There you go, Bruce.
So 36p Qcraft 7.5cc pressure tank. There's being milled.
Is it control line one?
Yeah.
Control line tank. Yeah, that was great. I use those all the time.
So now you can just, like you say, go down to the club. You only need like 2 or 3 batteries, and you just fly all day. It's fantastic.
Well, I do that anyway with my DLG. I don't even need a motor on it. It's all solar powered all the way up and all the way down, and the battery lasts all day. It's brilliant.
Oh, that's nice. That's good.
Yeah. No. So. Yeah, whilst James is right, it is a little bit off topic. It is, in a lot of ways, it's very on topic, I think, especially when we've also got rid of our 5G requirement because, we've got Mr. Musk's solar panels, we've got one of his power walls, and we've got the Starlink. We're A for away wherever we are in the world. Drop in and deploy.
I should have a plug. Tomorrow, I think it's tomorrow, is the FPV Freedom Coalition bi-weekly or fortnightly meeting, so drop into the FPV Freedom Coalition and listen to that or join in.
Yes, we're coming in. What sort of time will that be, sir?
Yes, it is some sort of time. I have no idea.
Yes.
What sort of time is it? Yeah.
Our professional standards rise to the top.
On the website, it's on their Discord server, so on the website it's got, I don't know, tell you where to go. I often tell people where to go. They don't take it very kindly.
So are you saying, Bruce, you guarantee it's a time?
It is at a time, yes. Absolutely, certainly at a time.
You can guarantee to us it is at a time at some point.
There is a finite temporal placement for that.
It's a 24-hour window is what we're saying.
You're a
Time is relative. We're all related to someone. And Wolf saying about using lead acid battery from forklifts. I used a forklift to jumpstart an R22 once, but that again's another story. Anyway, stop for sandwiches, left the battery master on. But anyway, there we go.
You can start your car from LiPo battery. A LiPo battery, it's amazing.
Yeah.
A little LiPo, if it's charged enough, that will turn over your car.
But you're better to actually put it across the battery and let the battery build up a charge so it doesn't draw too much current from the LiPo. I used to do it when I123 batteries first came out. You get the little 18650 size. They would start a car. They were amazing.
James, you need to write an article about that, James, then I'll publish it, and then I will get so much hate mail as I did the last time I put a perpetual motion. But I don't think I've seen perpetual motion via solar as a
seen systems that can do that.
Oh, there we are then.
I've seen it in the workshop, if you like. I've seen.
But wouldn't it be easier just to have wind generators under the props on a multi-rotor?
Yeah, hey, there we go. But of course. Yeah, I need to put something else in like that. I haven't put anything really silly in for a long time. Now that we are beginning.
The time of the meeting is in the chat. Someone's put it in there. For the FPV Freedom Coalition.
Oh, right. Okay, I'll put that up. Thank you very much, Cloud Splitter.
9 p.m.
Eastern. That's some
sort
of
what's Eastern?
Eastern PS.
Eastern Standard Time or Pacific Standard Time.
Pounds per square inch.
Because Russia's East, isn't it?
You think, can they convert that to metric? I mean, the rest of the world's metric. What are they doing in America?
Absolutely. So before we go then, because we are definitely descending into waffle, what else have we seen this week?
Nothing. It's been very quiet, but you will have seen in my videos that, again, we have to draw this distinction between drones as perceived by politicians and regulators and model aircraft. We had a really good weekend flying models. I was actually out flying FPV on the flight line, and the rest of the crew were trying to fly the little Eachine warbirds between my legs, because I was standing with my legs apart so I don't fall over. And I mean, flying a model airplane into someone on purpose, oh my goodness, while that person was controlling another model aircraft, that would be seen to be so dangerous against all the rules, but it was great fun. No one got hurt and hardly anybody died.
So those little things at Eachine, are they? I haven't caught up. I see you flying them, and I think I want one of those. So they're
they're brilliant. They are so much, because they've got 3 levels of, they've got stabilized, fully stabilized, which means you can hardly turn the damn things. Half stabilized, which means they're self-leveling and you can bank to about 45 degrees. And then expert mode, which is where you crash them because there's no stabilization at all. But they fly in the strongest of winds, and they're just absolute brilliant fun. I mean, if you can't fly anything else, you get one of those and fly that. And everyone's got one now. Everyone loves them, and they're going to be the plane du jour. And we're all having little buzzy swarms of these things. Fantastic fun.
Are they? What are they? What was I going to say? Is it only just? I think I've only seen Mustangs. Is it only a Mustang?
They've got Mustang, Corsair, and a Trojan, I think.
Oh, okay. Always that flipping Trojan they all built, didn't they?
If you're going to buy one, look for what's on special, because usually one of them is on special. And it's about $30 cheaper than the others, and it varies from week to week. So,
what receiver do I need to have?
It's got a receiver in it. It's got a transmitter with it. You get a free transmitter, mate, but you can bind it to the multi-protocol modules as a 765 or something.
If it comes with a transmitter, that'll do. What's it called again? What am I looking for?
What?
Eachine Mustang, I guess.
The address is pornhub.com/ oh no, that's a different one. I'll send you a link. I'll send a link to everyone on the thing, and then people can find it. Yeah.
Perfect.
Cool.
All right, yes.
I have an important question though to Bruce and to Ian. Are there FPV DJI drones still in one piece? Because if you've not crashed it yet, you're not flying it right. I've come to the conclusion.
That's fine. It's simple. Just don't fly it near anything. You will see a very consistent output from my flights with DJI FPV drone high. Okay, that's the very simple rule. There's at least 30 to 50 meters between me and anything it can get near, and that's the simple rule.
And that's because DJI didn't quite understand the term disarm.
There's a lot of people coming up against that little issue now as well. If you double tap the button on the right hand side,
I was wondering when that would happen, because when I was looking at it, geez, that's a bit dangerous, isn't it? Because I panic, tap, bang.
It is, and I've almost done it Well, I've done it. You know when it kicks return to home on you a little quicker than you would like, and I've noticed it tends to ignore your input to cancel it. It says press this button to cancel it, and you press the button and it doesn't cancel it, and you end up going like, "Will you cancel it?" And I'm shocked I haven't enabled that yet. Where it's gone, but it doesn't do that when it's enabled the return to home, or it's already warned you. But yeah, I did see 2 people this week double tap and it's gone, why did it fall out the sky randomly?
But the video, that looks like they glide almost. They fall so slowly. Have you noticed that? Even with the props
everything so slowly. It still floats. It feels like a wing to me. Is it me, bro? It flies like a bit of a strange wing.
It is. The more I fly it and compare it to the other quads I've got, the more it's just so loose and it doesn't groove.
That all the time.
Yeah. And I think part of that is due to these damn wings on the front, these vertical things on the front here, because they're ahead of the center of pressure, so they're trying to skew it. And I think that the gyros can compensate, but before the gyros can compensate, it has to turn a little bit for the gyro to recognize the turn. And so you're constantly sort of wobbling around, and then there's
you can see it in the footage as you watch the footage. Yeah. It's crabbing all the way through. Yeah.
And settling through prop wash, you get ring vortex, and it goes blah 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 blah. You know what they call it. Flying through the prop wash. It's not well tuned for a quad. That's why you can't get good cinematic footage, because you have to process the crap out of it and crop in and all that sort of stuff. And even then, it's just not as good as it could be.
Do you reckon sales have stopped now? Or
I think there's a few buying. I'm interested in how many buying in multiples. There's people There's a guy selling 2 remote controllers in the UK because he's bought 2 spare craft. It's the only way to get spares.
You should have bought the Crashmore package.
The Crashmore package, yeah. I don't know. I like the aircraft, but I'll be honest. I haven't got enough batteries to enjoy it. I need 8 set packs. I think
that's the thing you do with a normal freestyle drone. When you go out away from the chargers, we'll take 8, 9 batteries, 10 batteries, and that's what you need to do that. But I'm finding the battery life is nowhere near the 20 minutes. When I hammer it, and I'm getting 7 or 8 minutes before it starts suggesting that you're getting a bit low. Would you like to come return to home and that sort of thing? I'm thinking, I know what I'm doing.
15 minutes this weekend, the first time ever. I did not switch it out of standard GPS mode. If you watch the ND filter video at the end, there's some flying across the beach very slowly, and that got me 15 minutes, and I was astonished. But the second you come off that, the second you even do anything like that, it's like battery gone. Over.
That's crazy, because my standard FPV mini quad with a 3000 4-cell lithium ion, 22 minutes. 22 minutes, and that's cruising at a nice speed and doing a few little maneuvers and things. 22 minutes, easy as and I've still got enough left to do a controlled landing. So
I'll be honest. It's I'm finding it hard right now, having seen the A2S, to recommend it, because there's only 2 reasons to buy it. One, you must have FPV goggles. So if you want FPV goggles, then it's from a ready-to-fly drone, it makes sense. But if you're someone that wants to fly fast and get sort of cinematic FPV footage without doing any flips and rolls, get the A2S, because it can do it in sport mode just as well. And actually, it's a bit better because it flies a bit better.
And I don't think goggles are suiting a lot of people. A lot of people suffering from vertigo and motion sickness and falling over while they're trying to fly with goggles on for the first time.
Don't go on the freaking sim, right?
But not everyone has an iPhone, Ian.
No, I mean, you can. Yeah, well, I've done the DJI sim. I was rough for 3 hours. I played it for 20 minutes and I come off and I was like, I feel rough as crap now.
But it's not a drinking game. You don't have to have a bottle of bourbon with you.
Don't you? Oh, that's the only way I fly.
I even get ill flying. I was flying Bardwell's Yard, JB's Yard, the other day on thing, and I even get rough flying sims on this. I'm fine in goggles, but simulators, I'm just gets me every time.
So was it simulated vomit or real vomit?
No, unfortunately, that's real.
Shame, man. We must go. Now we are talking vomit, so we must go. Dear viewer, wherever you are in the world, I hope you're safe. If you're in India, I know one of our Indian viewers is here. I hope you and your family are safe. over there. Terrible situation. Wear a mask, wash your hands, stay away from other people. I will be back with some sort of rough news sometime tomorrow. Otherwise, we'll join you all again same time next week. So take care wherever you are in the world. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Look forward to seeing you all again soon. Cheers for now. Bye-bye.